I'd like to discuss with you, the player, the definition of a foul. And the definition is not quite as simple as one would think, but it can be if you listen to this video. Think of a foul as three parts. The first is illegal position, and think of that as 80% of the definition. That not being in the right position is 80% of a foul. And then think of part two of the foul as contact. So you're not in position, and then there's contact. But then there's a part three, and this is in the rules, and it's called a disadvantage. So if a player's not in position to make the play, let's say they're slower or bad footwork, or they just got beat, or they're just not in position, they're already mostly committing that foul. Now it still takes contact, and that contact creating a disadvantage, and now you've got the elements of a foul. So conversely, you as a player could drive to the hole and get hit, and the referee has a no call. And if you're not aware of the definition of a foul, you may think the referee either A, decided to let you play on, or B, missed the call. Now there's a chance they might have missed the call, again, if you got hit and the player was late and there was a disadvantage, but what if you just got hit? As a player, you're not always sure if the defense got there or not. That's the referee's job to determine that. So let's say the referee thought the player got there. If the player got there and you got hit, you've got a no call. Because remember, 80% of that foul is determined by illegal position, and for sake of argument, that player got there. So he's 80% succeeded on that no call. So the contact is irrelevant. And that's something that players, if they understood, it would reduce the number of arguments significantly. Also, if referees called fouls based on just that definition, they'd get every call right. So I just defined the definition of a foul. And you understand the definition of a foul, that it's not about contact, it's mostly about illegal position. But I probably should tell you the definition of illegal position, because that's such a critical part of a foul. So let's backtrack and just describe the definition of position. So legal position, meaning good position, the type that gets you the no call, is where you get in front of the directional arrow of the player shooting or driving to the hoop, whichever way they're going. So you get in front of them, described as perhaps your shoulders forming a parallel line out. That would be in front. But not only in front, but you're in front before their final step of their shot or move. So there's a timing component that you have to understand about legal position. Not only do you have to be in front, but you have to actually establish this before the offensive player's final step of that move or shot. As they step into a shot, or as they lift their right leg on a right-handed shot for a runner or a layup. So there's a timing component of when you have to, quote, be in front for you to be viewed as in front. So if you understand that, you would actually understand the definition of a foul fully, because the definition of a foul is illegal position with contact that creates a disadvantage. And you'll understand the definition and the rationale of a no call, which is that they must have got there prior to the final step of the offensive player's move. Let me give you an example of an argument that might come from a player that might illustrate this definition that we just went over. A player drives to the hole and they get hit on the arm, and they yell at the referee, "I got hit on the arm, that's a foul," in a factual manner. Well, remember, in the definitions we went over, if the defender got to that spot in front of the player prior to their final step of their move, all contact's legal. So in that case, the referee might say, if they saw it this way, the player got there, the defender got there, I have a no call, which would be a good interaction. Another example illustrating these definitions, maybe a player has their arms straight up and maybe they're in front of the offensive player when the contact occurs, and so they know this rule, and so they turn to the referee and say, "Why'd you give me a foul?" If the referee gave you a foul on that, he either missed the call, or by chance you were in front and had your arms straight up late meaning the player had already taken their step in stride to shoot or to drive, and you got into that good-looking position late. In that case, the referee's response would be, you got there late. The referee really shouldn't be saying in that example, because you hit him on the arm. That's not really why the foul was called. The foul would be called in that example because you got there late. The hitting of the arm is sort of irrelevant to it. You see, most of your no calls or your calls are about the position of the defender's body in relation to the offensive player going somewhere, and the timing. Now remember, the timing is that you got there prior to their final step of their move or shot. And if you did, that's most likely going to be a no call. Two more types of foul calls that are real easy to define. A charge is when the defender gets in front of the offensive player prior to their final step, and the offensive player dislodges the defender from their nice position. That would be a charge. A double foul is when both players have equally bad position and the contact is forced by both players who do not have the right to do what they do. For example, a defensive player arriving late to the scene, but then the offensive player lowering the shoulder into that poorly placed defender would be both players committing a foul at the same time, and that would be called a double foul. Another type of foul, but it's just called a foul, is a rebounding foul, and that's basically where someone has the inside position that they've worked for, they established prior to another player who comes from behind and dislodges that position. Usually it's done in a sneaky manner where the arms are up high looking like they're going for the rebound, but what's really happening is the player from behind with the bad position is walking into the lumbar back region of the well-positioned player. And so that can be called accidentally over the back. There is no such call as over the back. That would be actually called just a foul, like a body foul from behind. In discussing different types of fouls and no calls and scenarios, we should touch on advantage, disadvantage. Remember, a foul takes three things to be called: illegal contact, illegal position, and that causing a disadvantage. And an example of a no call would be a 3-on-1 fast break where the passer gets hit on the arm by a player in bad position, so they've got most of the foul there, but the ball goes through and his team is going to score a layup. The correct call in that scenario would be a no call, because there was no disadvantage created by that poorly placed defender hitting the arm. Another example of a no call based on no disadvantage would be a strong layup to the hoop, and the defender who hits the player is out of position, hits his arm, but there really is no disadvantage to the motion, and the play is going to develop and the player is going to score on that. In that case, the referee may come up with a no call because the third element was just simply missing. There was no disadvantage to that player trailing that hit the player. Now, if you're trailing and hit the player and make the shot really difficult to make, then there's a disadvantage there. But we're talking about the ones where it's pretty clear that the contact didn't affect or make the shot more difficult. That would be called a no call based on the lack of a disadvantage created by that contact.